Hi, welcome to Construction Quantity Surveying channel. My name is Buxton. In this channel, we get to learn construction, especially quantity surveying skills, those that matter to you, in a manner that is well explained. We've been doing this series in a sequential manner right from the start, where we started with the theoretical items, especially explaining the rules from the standard methods of measurements. Of course, that is just for a start, because this being an international channel, we are heading towards explaining or also using other materials from other different parts of the world, including the new rules of measurements and so on. For today, I would like us to go about formwork. In our previous session, we learned about we've been learning about different items, including what we call now the concrete. That is where we did the blinding. We also did concrete for the footing, the slab, and so on. For this particular session, as has been presented, I would like us to go through what we call the formwork. First of all, just to reiterate the importance of the same, you realize that as we were doing the theoretical concepts where we were explaining the items, we got to learn what formwork is, and as well we got to learn what the reasons for using formwork are. In that matter, we said that formwork is used especially to make sure that the wet concrete in its in that green form, it can have the shape, because you realize that formwork, I mean the concrete, is a structural element, and therefore for it to have the intended purpose, it must conform to certain dimensions and has to attain certain strength requirements. And therefore, the formwork is used to contain that given concrete into shape, size that has been designed, and also to allow it to gain the sufficient strength before it can be left on its own to support its own weight. Therefore, as a quantity surveyor, it's important that you know how exactly to measure that particular formwork, because it's a cost item and it's going to affect the overall cost of construction at the end of the day. So, for what has been presented, for instance, is simply formwork, the traditional timber formwork. Of course, formwork are of different types. There are those that will use plastic formwork, steel formwork, depending on what is available and depending on the kind of final finish of that concrete that you'll need. Then it's going to make you decide on which type of formwork to use. Okay, and therefore for the substructure, this is what we've been dealing with. We've been going about the substructure works. For the substructures, for our simple plan, just to remind those who are joining us for the first time, for our simple basic plan, there is that particular item, that particular plan that we've been using, and this is the plan. So this plan, we started going through it in various aspects, various items, measuring from the start, that is from the site clearance. We went to oversight excavations, we did the trench excavations, and then we did concrete foundations and so on. Until today, we are looking at formwork. So basically, we are focusing on the substructure formwork, so to say, because formwork, even in the superstructures, they'll be found, as well as other items. But for now, we are looking at the substructures formwork, and we just want to see how to go about the same, or how to estimate that. So first of all, you need to identify in which types of items are you going to experience the use of formwork in the substructures level. Okay, so from that case, how to identify that simply is just in a simple way. What you'll do, you simply identify the items that are involving concrete, because basically at this point we are talking about formwork to support the concrete. Therefore, when you have a look at the items that are involving formwork at the substructures, they include the footing and also at the edges of the slab. Okay, so those two items are the ones that we are intending to do our estimation for, and as well, okay, definitely learn how to measure them and see exactly where those items are placed. Talking straight to what I'm presenting, formwork to the sides of the footing. Footing are the foundation's footing, and in that case we had calculated the concrete work that is involved in the concrete in the substructure's footing. So we are just intending to get the concrete, the formwork that is going to support that particular concrete at the footing. So that said, therefore we only need to refer to our rules. That has always been the trend. You need to refer to what the rule is talking about, the rules of the standard methods of measurements. So once you've referred to that, then you come back and identify the item and then get the necessary dimensions. So basically that is the basic procedure that you should always follow for you to measure any sort of item. Identify the item, okay, identify the rule of an item, then get to the plan, see what the item is, then in reference to the rule that you've talked about, get the dimension that you need, and you'll be good. So let's see, from the rules we get to see formwork. We have formwork here. So for the formwork that is now in our item, that is coming to be item number, we have item number 19, item number 20. Okay, leave alone 20. That will be coming on a later stage when we'll get to the items, the structures, elements like the columns and so on. When you get to item 21 as well, we'll also skip that for now. But then we'll be talking about an item number 19 and also item number 23. Item number 19 is talking about the foundation footings, while item number 23 is going to guide us in our estimation for this formwork for the sides edges of the slab. So item number 19 is footing, and it's shown that we have to do it in square meters, and therefore what is of importance is for us to identify how to arrive at that square meters of that particular item. So we go straight to the plan. We've seen it square meters. We go straight to the plan. At the plan, where exactly is that formwork going to be placed? That is the bigger question. Okay, the formwork that you're talking about is going to be placed at the edges, at the sides, vertical sides of the foundation footing. So what that means is that we need to now get the length, because the ultimate unit of estimation for the formwork for the sides of the footing is the square meters. Therefore we are required that we find the length and then we get a width for the same. For us to get the width is equivalent to what you have in your the thickness of your footing, and of course the length we are going to use the center line and then we multiply by 2. And the reason is, for this case we've already calculated the center line in our previous sessions. So just could just take you through to what we had calculated. Then you'll realize that we had calculated our center line. Yeah, that came early while we were doing the trenches. Okay, because that is what you are still dealing with. The trenches, the blinding, concrete blinding, concrete footing, and excavation are going to be using the same length. That's why I told you that it was so crucial that we get those particular dimensions quite well and we understand them properly. So if you are new to the channel, catching us for the first time, then the previous sessions there is a part that is dealing with the center line. So just get to that video so that you are able to catch us in terms of how to properly calculate the center line. So when that said, the trench excavation, this is where we calculated it, and our center line was found to be 63.6. okay, this is what we had calculated from this particular plan. Okay, so having said that, we already have the center line. That center line is what is going to be used for us to calculate also the area for the formwork at the sides of the footing. This is the reason, because what we have in terms of what we have in terms of center line is going to be straight on from that particular point. It means that it's going to be cutting through our foundation wall at the center. But because what we need, the square meter that we need for the footing, is going to be on both sides, at the internal external point, okay, at this particular edge, and then at this particular edge as well. So there is an internal side and then there is an external side. Okay, so this is the first point that we are going to have our formwork. Okay, so in this case, this is the formwork externally. So if I could just zoom out, you'll notice that this is the slab. So for this wall is what has been presented for you at this particular point. This wall is what is appearing on your plan. Okay, and therefore that footing at large is extending both internally and externally, because the wall is sitting exactly at the center of it. Okay, so once you've understood that, then it means we are going to calculate the formwork at the edges, at the sides, on the internal side, and also on the external side. So for the external side is what I've just indicated, and then internal side, where we also have another set of formwork being placed, is at this particular point. Let me just also show that. So we have that internal formwork is placed at that particular point. Okay, therefore you see, when we shall be adjusting, for instance, if you are to get the actual length on internal part and the external part, then we'll be referring to what we call the center line, and of course adjusting it so that we have the internal length. The same time, when we are going to get the one for the external length, then we'll be referring to the internal for the center line, and then we'll also be adjusting for the same to take it to the external length. Okay, so that means if for instance what we have, let's just get to what we calculated for our center line. For instance, the dimensions that we have, these dimensions were from the external faces of the wall, and therefore it means we were to do adjustment to get to the length at the external edges. The same dimensions, if we could get from the reference of the center line, and then we do adjustment to get the one to the internal point, then it means it will be like a +1 - 1. Okay, it will be like a +1 - 1, because we are making our reference point at the center line. We are going to add the same dimension to get to what we have internal point. The same dimension, because the wall is sitting at the center and the trench footing or the foundation footing is having equal spread, internal and external spread. Okay, therefore the best approach would be we use what we have as the center line, and then you multiply by 2. That is going to give us a strike through between what we have internally and what we have externally. So without even further waste of time, you get the center line. Once you have the center line, you multiply that by 2, so that you get what you call the area for the spread. I mean the area for the formwork. Okay, so that is what I'm trying to explain to you. So we go straight and see what we have to do here. So this is a formwork, and this is a formwork to the sides of foundations. Okay, so once you have that, then we've also understood that it's going to be calculated in square meters, and for that reason, what we need to know is the dimensions. So for the length we've discussed quite in depth that length is equal to center line. Okay, And center line we had calculated in our previous session. We'll just present it for a moment for those who are catching up, and we can just do it. Just have a look at that. And for this one, the plan that we calculated it with is this, and we were able to see. Yes, so maybe just if you are seeing it for the first time, you can just note a few of those dimensions of our plan is looking like, so that you can just ascertain that as well on by your own, because measurements is a learning, and it's a practical session. So you will always have those moments that you need to press your calculator here and there just to confirm whether what is here is really adding up. So this is the plan that we used, okay? And then from this plan, the presentation or the calculation that we did also, which covered a good session, almost one session, this is what we came up with as the center line. So for this case, it's easier for you to make a reference from what we got and what have been shown on your plan. You can just pause and try to follow through if what was calculated is actually adding up to what's in the plan. So having said that confidently, because we did this quite properly, and it's what we got to, we arrived at. So the trench, the center line we got to be 63.6, okay? So because we had the 63.6, then that is what we are going to indicate here as the center line, okay? 63.60. So this is the center line. This is the center line as calculated in trench excavation, okay, previous session. So that has also been presented for the I've also presented that just for a few moments, so that if you are following up, you are able to do so without any difficulty. So we've arrived to this decision that for the center line we are going to use the length, we are going to use the center line in that particular manner. And then for the width is equals to 200 millimeters. For this red on the foundation footing, you read that on the foundation footing section, okay? So unless you don't have it, you can make an assumption, but if you have it, the best idea would be you read it from the section. And the same as the thickness for the foundation footing, concrete foundation footing, okay? So those are some of the items that are critical points that you need to take care of. So it's 200 millimeters read on the foundation footing section. So this is what I'm talking about, okay? This is what I'm talking about. So this is 600 for the footing. It's going to be 200 millimeters, okay? So that said, we can therefore go on to another item. Okay, we can go on and enter the dimensions that we have. All right, so you've noted that the formwork is going to be on both sides. So that is one thing that you also come to understand. So we go straight to our dimensions, and this is what we are going to have: 63.60, and then 0.20 because it's square meters. So we do the the length, which is the center line as we've seen, and also the width, which is 0.20. Once you have this, as usual, you make your work quite tidy. You just underline properly, okay? Once you do that, and then you have this particular line, and you have at the top the number of times that you need it. So this is the dimension column. I'll keep reiterating, because if you're catching us for the first time, then it means there are some points that you need to keep putting into perspective, or keep reminding yourself about and it's just important that we talk about them bit by bit as we go on, so that it sticks even better. So we have that, and we need to, because we are doing it for the two sides, then it means that we are going to have it times 2 at this point. Okay, so we have the 2 placed there. Okay, so that is quite well done. So this is what we are coming to find in terms of our dimension and what we have formwork to the sides of the foundations. So that is basically the explanation that you can give it. For any questions, more clarifications, at the comment section, just put down your question, more clarification that you need for the same, and will be very good. But at the moment, that is what we can cover up to that point. And then we go to the next item where we have the formwork. As usual, this in the mode of our presentation, we get to explain these items using images, using projects that are happening, so that you are able to understand better. So the next item we are covering now is on about formwork to the edges. So let's just move through to the next item, and the next item is what we call, actually before we go to that, we need to put up a description for this. We need to put up a description for what we have just done. So as usual, you do your bracketing quite properly. Okay, so once you have your bracket, and then you go ahead and make up your description. So this is formwork to the side, so you can just talk about sawn formwork to the vertical sides of foundations. Okay, so it's as simple as that. And if in case you're wondering where we are coming up with those items that you don't have idea of, it's simple. These items, the descriptions, are provided for in the rule. The rule gives you the basic items that you need to put in place in your description. So if you don't find it fully, of course, for more detailed descriptions, it will come about by experience on how much you interact with these items on site and so on. But before that, there is a footing, there is a basis in which you have to give your proper descriptions, and that is now the standard methods of measurements. You refer to the rules. It will be giving you the threshold, some of the items that you shouldn't miss in terms of categorization of the formwork and so on. Okay, if it's to the edges, how should you go about that? So those basic items is what form the basis of your description. So it's not coming out of guesswork. It's not coming out of anything that should scare you even for a minute. There is a setting, there is a basis in which these items are going to be described. Okay, so it shouldn't worry you even for a moment. So we've given our description, so we have a proper takeoff of formwork, which is very, very good. Then now we can proceed to what we had just started, and that is about sawn formwork. That is on formwork to edges of slab. Okay, so that is what we are covering next. And as usual, in our mode of presentation, we tend to give images so that we are able to show the items that we are talking about. In this manner, it's important and it's easier for us to even understand better these items that we are talking about, so that it doesn't look very green if at all you don't have idea or you are getting this course for the first time, because there are those that are learning this course for the very first time, and at the end of the day I can assure you that you shall be very, very competent. These items shall be very, very good, deep inside your understanding in terms of how you understand them. So formwork to the edges of the slab is basically to contain the slab. Okay, slab bed, or bed concrete, or you can call it slab on grade and so on. Okay, so this is what we are talking about. When you look at my cursor my cursor properly, you will notice there is a sawn timber. Okay, so basically it always also dictates the thickness, the overall thickness that you're going to use. So for instance, if you have you're using something to do with 100 millimeters slab or 150 millimeter slab, then as long as you've sought for a formwork that is of that width, then you install it properly. It's going to help you to have a slab that is going to conform to that particular width of that particular to the particular formwork. So this is what we have in terms of the formwork, and then you set it all around, and then you cast your slab. So what is of essence is for you as a quantity surveyor that you know how to measure this item. Okay, and from this image, it's clear that you can see the formwork is at the edge on the external side. It means they're also at the face of the foundation footing. So that said, then it shouldn't be a problem for you to follow up and get the length of what you have in this particular point. Okay, moving into now the real items of how to get those particular item, the length. Then we'll move straight to seeing the items. So we've from the section, we can see the formwork is going to be placed at the edge of the slab, and that edge of the slab is also the same edge of this particular foundation walling. And therefore, when we get the length for this external edge, okay, we get the length at the external faces of the wall, then we shall have got the length for our slab. Okay, so we go straight to seeing how that is going to be calculated. So first of all, we just get basically the external perimeter of what we have here. So we'll start with let's see. So we'll proceed to get the length. Of course, being that it's the length at the external faces, then we'll start from this particular point. You can see here it's 0.2. Then we have 5.6 and so on. So we'll calculate that length and see what we have. So the length, it will start at 0.20. Then we go to 5.60. We go to 0.20, and then this is 10.8, 10.80, and then 0.20. Okay, so that is the length at this for this part. And then we'll get this. We'll just get it the way the basic way in which you would calculate the perimeter of a perfect rectangle. So despite, and then we of course will add what we call now the recesses for this particular, because this plan is not that perfect rectangle. So we'll get the length. So we have 0.2, 5.6, 0.2, 10.8, and then 0.2. Okay, then we get the width. Of course, add the 2, then multiply by 2. The way you do, and add the recesses. The way you calculate the perimeter of a rectangle. Of course, it's only that we have the recesses, so that's why we add the recesses after we got that particular length. So let's see what we have here when we add these two items, and then okay. So this one is going to be this is 5.8, 6, 16.8. That is 17.00. So once you have that indicated, then it means no, leave alone the one, it shouldn't be there. So we have the length, and then we calculate now the width. Okay, so let's get width. So the width, we just take the longer side. Now that takes us to the other bit. Okay, let's see what we have. For our width, we'll start with either of the points. You can start with the 0.2 at the top. You can start with the 0.20 at the top. Then you get to 11.00. Then you get to 0.20. So we add those. What we get is 11.4. That is 11.40. So that gives us the length. Okay, the length we had got just on the immediate top, where we got it to be 17.00, and then our width we've just got it to be 11.4. So the basic way that you would calculate the perimeter of a rectangle, so we'll just get so the total length therefore would be 2. Okay, so we'll just get for instance, let's just stick to the approach. So 17.00, and then we add 11.40. okay, so when we add these two, we get this is 28, yeah, 28.40. okay, so once we have this, we are going to now the next part is now 2 multiplied by 28.40. okay, so that was the length and the width. So we get the length plus the width, then you multiply by 2. okay, we get the perimeter. okay, so what does that come to? That comes to 56.80. okay, and then we are going to add. okay, so this one is giving us, that is what we have, and then we now add the recesses. okay, and the recesses, we take them to the external face, so it will be 0.2, and then we add 3.6, so that for the recesses on either side is going to be 3.8 times 2, 3.8 on one side and 3.8 on the other side from the external face as well. So that is going to be 3.8, because 3.6 plus the 0.2, so that is 3.80, and we multiply by 2. okay, so that is what we have. So it's 2 times 3.80, and that gives us, so we just take this 56.8, and then we add to what we have here, and that is 7.60. okay, so when we add these two, we should be getting that perimeter on the external face, and that is going to be this is going to be 440, and then we have another 4, and then we have 6. okay, so that is 64.40 as the total length. okay, so just delete some of that so that you have it properly arranged. So that is how it is. So we have our total length to be 64.40 as the length that we are going to use for the formwork at the edges of our slab. okay, so as usual, once you've done a good job, you remember to keep it even more tidy by making sure that you underline the items that you have. For instance, just to give a distinction between the dimensions you are entering and the ones that you've got. So for instance, you can just do that is now your total length, and of course at this point we had, you separate that from this so that you are able to see it properly, what the items you've entered and so on. The same you'd apply to this point here. Okay, so that was the length, well indicated. Then we got the width also properly indicated, 11.4. we added the 2, we get the perimeter. Then we added what we call now the recesses, okay, the 2 of them from the external faces. So we got a total length of 64.40. So once you have that, and then you will go ahead and now enter your dimensions in terms of what we calculated. The unit being that we do it in linear meters, therefore it means when we have the 64.40, it should be properly in order. That is what you've calculated, and then you underline to just signify that you already have your length, what you are looking for the formwork. Okay, as usual, the next step is just make a bracket, and then you describe what is supposed to be described at that particular point. Perfect. So once you have that, then you always make a reference to the rules, because that is what keeps guiding you in terms of what to include and what not. Okay, so once you have that, it's now easier for you to have your description. So just get back to the rule and see what does the rule say about the formwork. Okay, if it's in linear meters, that is already calculated. After the linear meters, what follows? Now the description. For the description, what should you include? So the first item you need to include is the material, and then the second item is for you to consider the girth. So formwork to the edges should be measured in stages of 75. And for instance, here we are working with a slab of 150 millimeters thickness, and therefore the stage in which that thickness is falling is between 75 and 150. Okay, so from the stage of 175 to 150, it will be the next stage. Now that is going to be 150, and then exceeding 150 and not exceeding 225. So you add 75 to that particular girth moving forward. But for now, for what you have, the 150 millimeters thick, it's falling in a stage of exceeding 75 millimeters but not exceeding 150 millimeters. Okay, perfect. So once that is discussed properly, and then we'll move ahead and make our description for that particular formwork. Okay, so we'll go ahead and make our description, and then we see what follows. So let's just go on and add what we have, and that is just say, for instance, just talk about zone formwork to edges, zone formwork to the edges of the slab, girth exceeding 75 millimeters thick but not exceeding 150 millimeters thick. Okay, so that is what is supposed to be said in terms of our slab. So just make our description to be where it's supposed to be. Just squeeze it in a bit that way, so that you have it properly done. Okay, perfect. So that is what we have. So that said, we've already calculated our length, we've got our description properly done. Zone formwork to edges of slab, girth exceeding 75 millimeters thick but not exceeding 150 millimeters thick. So that brings us to a close to what we ought to cover in terms of the formwork, and we've done it quite well for the edges of the footing, the sides of footing, and the edges of the slab. So for our basic plan, what we've been starting to learn from, it's just quite imperative that we end at that point. Of course, now more detailed formwork in terms of more complex plans and drawings are going to be coming in our next in our subsequent sessions. So for this particular point, I would like to end it at that particular point with what we've learned. And as usual, these of our sessions, they are building on each other. So from what we've done, the next items are going to be what is listed in our plan. Okay, so we've covered formwork to sides of the footing, we've covered formwork to edges of the slab. Therefore, the next item is going to be substructure walling. Okay, so as they come in that particular order, you are able to build your knowledge in a good format without having to skip from one item to the other, where you will be lacking that sequence in terms of how the items should follow one another. Okay, so that said, I would like to end it at that point. And you having watched up to this far, I want to thank you so much, and I believe that it was worthwhile. You've learned what you're supposed to learn for this particular session. So moving forward, we'll just go to the next items as we've listed there. And I would urge you, if you haven't subscribed, please make a subscription so that you don't lack any of this content that is coming through. For private sessions, kindly reach out. I'm ready for that. For additional jobs that are described in my description, e.g. builds of quantities, you have personal assignments, university assignments, and so on, I'm also ready to handle the same. So please do not hesitate, but just reach out so that we can work together. Thank you very much. Have a great time. We'll meet again in our next session that is going to be very soon. Thank you so much. Bye bye.